أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. Chapter 4, verse 2. It's been about 35 years, but I still remember that patient as if it was yesterday. I was a medical student in Karachi, Civil Hospital, Karachi, Pakistan, and a family brought a young lady who, in the middle of the night, and as you know the custom, there were many family members with her. Her husband and her mother-in-law were there with this young lady. She looked pale. In fact, she looked deathly pale. And we knew that she was in labor and she had lost a lot of blood. I wonder where they were bringing her from. We all got up, students and the team, ready to resuscitate her. We knew she needed blood right away. And in that time, the blood bank system was fairly ordinary, and we needed transfusions from the family members. So we saw her husband was next to us, young man, fairly healthy. We approached him that you need to donate blood right away because otherwise she's not going to make it. As he's thinking about giving blood, the other lady, his mother, the mother-in-law of this young woman, stepped forward and said, he's not going to give blood. He's not going to donate anything. And he held the hand of his son, her son, that you're not going to go and do it. And I thought personally that she doesn't know what is going on. So I approached her and said, you know, your daughter-in-law is going to die if the blood is not given, but she would not do that. The question is, why was she acting that way? Would she have done that if it was her own daughter? Why was she treating this young girl, young lady, a different way? She was willing to let her die, but wouldn't want her son to give blood. We belong to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His hadith says that we are like one body. If one part suffers pain, the whole body suffers pain. Why was she not feeling the pain of this young lady? What was going on? True story. We all got together. Our students, we got together, we donated blood, and we were able to transfuse and save this lady's life. But this is an extreme example, but do we see some of this in our communities? I hate to say it, but once in a while, we do hear strange comments coming from families. We hear that, well, the gifts that came with you in your marriage or jihaz or dowry is not that good, not of standard. Or your parents didn't teach you well because you can't cook properly at homes. Or you can't go and meet your parents because when you come back, you have all kinds of new ideas. And so on and so forth. We hear all kinds of comments, even in our community. And this is not unique to us, by the way. Can anyone guess what is the percent in the world as to how many families have these challenges? BBC.com had an article, and they did some research, and they found that 3 out of 4 families, 75%, had difficulties with an in-law. And the most challenging relationship was that of the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. But 3 out of 4 families, and the causes they put together were, it's an issue of control, it's an issue of ego, criticism, unrealistic expectations, interference in other family matters like their children's families. We're so fortunate, though, that we belong to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the ultimate guide, the ultimate example for us. And he guided us in words and also his Personal example. In weddings, we give out gifts so that the other person remembers. How would you feel if you got a gift from the Holy Prophet ﷺ at your wedding? And you all know that as a loving father, he gave a lasting gift to all of us. And you know what that is? Is the Sermon of Nikah. The collection of verses that the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave us is a gift to us. It's our duty to pay attention to those verses and get those lessons that help throughout our life. The verse that I recited, chapter 4, verse 2, is included in those verses of Nikah. It is included in that gift, a message from the Prophet ﷺ for all of us. Now I will read the translation and think for a moment he is addressing you directly. The verse reads, O ye people, fear your Lord who created you from a single soul and created therefrom its mate. And from then twain spread many men and women, and fear Allah, in whose name you appeal to one another, and fear Him particularly respecting ties of relationship. This is, Allah Ta'ala says, fear particularly respecting ties of relationship. Verily, Allah watches over you. And in Urdu, ए लोगो अपने रब का तकवा इख्तियार करो जिसने तुम्हें एक जान से पैदा किया और उसी से उसका जोड़ा बनाया और फिर इन दोनों में से मर्दों और औरतों को बकसरत फैला दिया और अल्लाह से डरो जिसके नाम के वास्ते देकर तुम एक दूसरे से मांगते हो और रहमों के तकाज़ों का भी ख्याल रखो यकीनन अल्लाह तुम पर निगरान है. What is the message? The message of unity. Allah is above all of us, but underneath Him, we are all single soul because we come from a single soul. Doesn't matter what is our background, where we live, what is our financial status, what language we speak, which college we went to, how big of a house we have, what type of clothes we wear. It doesn't matter what type of car we drive. We're all one soul under Allah the Almighty. And then after talking about unity, Allah Ta'ala brings the concept of relationships, rahmi relationships, because we are all the same. And then Allah Ta'ala says, fear Allah. Keep Him in mind because He is above all of us. But the point I want to make is that the verse doesn't end there. After talking of fearing Allah 2 times in the verse, Allah Ta'ala adds, Inna Allaha kana alaykum raqiba. That verily Allah is watching. Allah watches over you. Yaqinan Allah tum par nigran hai. जब रिश्तों की बात हुई अल्लाह ताला ने करने के बाद अपनी निगरानी का जिक्र भी फरमा दिया. That after mentioning about relationship, Allah has mentions, I am watching. I am watching what you do behind the closed doors. You may say I'm very gracious and kind to my family, my in-laws, my daughter-in-law and son-in-law, but He's watching. The Holy Prophet ﷺ did not leave just words for us. He left practical examples. His first beloved wife, whom he married when he was 25, and at the age of 40, when he receives the revelation, the message, he's concerned. He goes to his wife, and what does she say? That is recorded in the history. Again, a lesson for us. The response of Hazrat Khadija radiallahu anha, his wife, was, by Allah, Khadija said, Allah shall never subject you to any indignity, for you always maintain your ties with those of your kin. It's a longer passage, but आप सिला रहमी करते हैं, आप रिश्तेदारों का ख्याल रखते हैं. Coming from a wife means that not only was he kind to his own relatives, but those of hers as well. My dear brothers and sisters, if I use the word paradise or Jannat, what comes to mind? Peaceful life after death, comfort, closeness to Allah the Almighty. This paradise descended in the homes of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this paradise then spread to the community and his believers around him. Let us take a glimpse of, although there are many aspects of it, but the topic that I'm talking about, relationship with a kin in marriage, or susrali rishtedar as we call it in Urdu, let's take a glimpse of how it was. You know, we worry about one set of susral or in-laws. The Prophet ﷺ had 9 of them. But never do we hear any problems amongst the relationship. He married young and old, rich and poor, ordinary and noble, his tribes or from other tribes, but never once there was any issue. What was the result of all these marriages? Everybody came together. All these tribes and these difficulties that were having amongst those tribes, they were resolved with Hazrat Habiba radiallahu anha was the daughter of Abu Sufyan, a staunch enemy of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Once the marriage took place, his animosity ended, and eventually he accepted Islam. Hazrat Javeriya radiallahu anha, a wife of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, she was daughter of a staunch, bitter enemy of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, Haris bin Abi Zarar. He was fighting with the Holy Prophet ﷺ. And when the marriage took place, as the customs at that time, many Muslims released all the prisoners and the families that were in that war. But here's the story. Hazrat Javeriya's father found out about the marriage, and he and his son came to the Prophet ﷺ with a ransom to have her released. The Prophet could have said, "Get out of here. The war, you were fighting." The Holy Prophet ﷺ responded with kindness. And he asked Hazrat Javeriya, "What do you want to do?" And Hazrat Javeriya obviously said, "I want to stay with you, Ya Rasulullah." And both her father and brother accepted Islam, seeing the kindness of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Not only coming together, but the respect of the in-laws. We have heard the story, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, who was father-in-law of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. After the fall of Makkah, he brought his father, elderly father of Hazrat Abu Bakr, to meet the Holy Prophet ﷺ. And what was the response of the Prophet? He could have said, "It's about time you come and meet me." But the Prophet ﷺ responded saying, "Abu Bakr, why did you bother your father? I would have come to meet him. He's the king of Arabia now." And father of the father-in-law, he was showing that respect. One of the companions of Holy Prophet ﷺ, Amr bin al-As radiallahu anhu, once asked the Holy Prophet ﷺ, "Who is your most beloved, Ya Rasulullah?" The Prophet responded, "Aisha." And he said, "How about among men?" He said, "Aisha's father." So again, look at the relationship Hazrat Abu Bakr had and the respect that he had. The Prophet ﷺ did not forget, even after the demise, his in-laws. Hazrat Hala, who is the sister of Hazrat Khadija radiallahu anha, she used to come and meet the Prophet ﷺ. She would knock at the door, get permission and enter. And her approach, her ways, the way she spoke was very similar to Hazrat Khadija. Whenever she would come, the Holy Prophet used to get overcome with emotions, and he would say, "Oh Allah, it's Hala." And he would get up in respect of the sister of his wife. Along with the respect, the Prophet went out and helped out his in-laws. A story is related of Hazrat Maimuna, his wife, radiallahu anha. She had a slave girl, and she released her. Prophet ﷺ came and found out about it. He didn't get upset. That, "Why did you do that?" He said, "What happened?" She said, "I released the slave girl." Prophet said, "If you had given her to your mamu, your uncle who was very deserving in difficulties, it would have been better for you," keeping in mind about the relations of his wives. Hazrat Asma, who is the sister-in-law of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, daughter of Hazrat Abu Bakr, in fact, stepsister, she and her husband were in extreme difficulty. They didn't have any resources. The Prophet ﷺ arranged pieces of land for them so that he can cultivate and make their own earnings. Now, it should go both ways. If the elders are showing respect, the younger ones also have to show respect and obedience. The Holy Prophet ﷺ used to go and knock at the door of his daughter and son-in-law, Hazrat Ali, for months and waking up for Fajr prayer. Now, sometimes we say, well, the parents shouldn't interfere. Yes, but what was the interference of Hazrat Holy Prophet ﷺ was waking up for Fajr prayer. And Hazrat Ali or Hazrat Fatima never became upset at that. The Prophet ﷺ, we know that he used to help out at home. Someone asked Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha, how was he at home? She said he was just like any ordinary man. He would come, he would help out, mend his clothing, repair his shoes, milk the goats, clean the floor. So if the Prophet ﷺ can do all of that, why can't we let our sons-in-law do that, or our sons do that, and get upset when our daughter-in-law say, well, about this? So we should treat the same way as the Prophet of Islam ﷺ used to do that. One other aspect I want to relate is that in the life of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, it's amazing. Sometimes it seems strange, but he and mostly his wife, Hazrat Aisha, sometimes had a little discord with the Holy Prophet ﷺ. And she would get upset. And on one occasion, there was something like that. And the Prophet ﷺ suggested, okay, let's have an arbiter. Kisi ko salis bana lete hain. And he said, well, Hazrat Umar ko, let's make Hazrat Umar. And she said, no, he's very harsh. So he said, okay, fine, Abu Bakr. Her father, the Prophet ﷺ, is saying, okay, fine, let's have Hazrat Abu Bakr as the arbiter, as the salis. So Hazrat Abu Bakr comes in, and the Prophet ﷺ starts explaining what happened. And Aisha says, nee, speak the truth. And on that, Hazrat Abu Bakr obviously got mad and about to hit Hazrat Aisha. What are you saying? Means the Prophet wasn't saying the truth. The Prophet comes in and helps out Hazrat Aisha and saves her from her father. Let alone, we see sometimes, some of us men see our wives suffer from in-laws relationships. Here, the Holy Prophet ﷺ was saving her from her own father. In other words, the Prophet ﷺ fulfilled the testimony of Hazrat Khadija that she had given. All his actions are worth noting, but once Hazrat Ibn Umar asked Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha, could you quote one quality of the Prophet ﷺ that you liked the most? You know what Hazrat Aisha said? Nothing. She started crying. She couldn't console herself. It took a while for her to control her tears. And finally she composed herself and said, everything about him was unique and unusual. How could I name one quality? So this is the paradise that descended in the homes of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. He loved his family and the family loved him. My dear brothers and sisters, we invite people to Islam Ahmadiyya. We go out and do tabligh, a noble task. Hazur just talked about that. We invite, say, Islam Ahmadiyya is the best religion. It's the best code of life. It's a heavenly atmosphere that Islam can create. Do we have that in our homes? When we do the tabligh and invite people to our homes, to our community, do we have that heavenly atmospheres in our relationships, in-laws, Mecca, Susral, all these fights and tussles? Is that the heavenly atmosphere that Allah Ta'ala or the Holy Prophet expected of us? We hear about brotherhood, mu'akhat, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It is amazing that there is a brotherhood that Allah wants to create through marriage, and that is the relationship of in-laws. Marriage is a commandment of Allah Ta'ala, and His expectation is that we will create the mu'akhat in marriage or relationship with in-laws. When we meet, even in Jalsa, I met so many people, we all try to find a relationship. And somehow, yes, we find some common person there. Okay, fine, my khalu, my uncle, my chacha, whoever. So if we are one big family, which we are, can't we live like one family? The way the Prophet ﷺ lived? We belong to the promised Messiah ﷺ. And Hazur just mentioned his teaching in his letter. Hazrat Masih ﷺ says, treat all the creation with such deep love as though they are your close family members. And then he said, treat mankind in the same way that a mother treats her child. Hazrat Masih Islam is talking about the entire humanity, not our close relatives. So how much he expects us to treat our close relatives, our rishdar, our Sasurali rishdars, in-laws, if he expects us to treat the entire humanity like a mother treats her child. Now on that note, let me go back to the story I told you earlier. When we were talking to that mother-in-law, and she was refusing, someone came to me from behind and said, Hum denge khoon. I will give blood. And I was surprised. I looked back, and here is an old lady, frail, who's standing there. And I said, Who are you? She said, I am her mother. She was the mother of that young girl who was on deathbed. And this lady was frail. She was on her deathbed also, but she was willing to give blood to save her daughter. That is what Hazrat Masih Maud Islam, that is the degree of relationship he wants us to have with the humanity. What about our relations, our daughter-in-law? That is the atmosphere. Allah Ta'ala ne, in the verse Allah Ta'ala talked about arham. That comes from Allah Ta'ala's attribute, Rahmaniyat. If we cut away the relationships with Rahman, the Rahman, Khuda will cut relationships with us. So we have to be very careful. What sort of ego is satisfied when a 50 to 60-year-old lady ridicules a 25-year-old girl or disgraces a 25-year-old girl? All I would say is, Inna Allah kana alaykum raqiba. Or what is it when we taunt a young man or a young girl because of her physical appearance? Inna Allah kana alaykum raqiba. That is the only answer. It's not my answer. It's the answer that the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave when he gave us the gift, the message for our nikahs and wedding. My dear brothers, I didn't say sisters first. My dear brothers, we call ourselves Qawam. And we are very proud of that we are the guardians. Now here is our assignment. If we are the guardian, we have to make sure that we create that atmosphere in our homes, that heavenly atmosphere in our homes, where there is love in all relationships. Hazrat Masih Maud Islam, you have heard once, in his standard, he's raised his voice on his wife. And for days he repented. He offered sadaqat, he offered nawafil. That was his respect of his wife. And sometimes we let our family members ridicule our wives or raise voice against them. Who do we belong to? Or who do we claim that we belong to? In the end, let's see the action items for all of us. First off, let's analyze how are we in relationships with our in-laws. Let's ask our Khadijas. Let's ask our wives. And we should have the himmat and courage to listen to what they are going to say. And I request our sisters to tell us the truth. How have we been in relationship with our in-laws? And we can give them honest opinion also. And then it is time to change. Hazur said in his letter, mere lip service is not going to do anything. If you're going to listen to this speech, let's go back and make a change. We have to change. We have to bring that kindness, the compassion, the respect. How about going and saying thanks to our daughter-in-laws that you lived with my son, you have had this home that you have prepared, you're raising the children. Shukriya ada karne mein kya hamara jhad jayega? So let's be kind to our in-laws and develop a relationship with them. Those who are not married, where do you want to be? In that 75% in the world? Or you want it in the camp Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where there is love and affection at home? I'm sure the answer is clear. I know it is difficult sometimes. It's difficult to salvage our pride and ego. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam demands, let me read to you a hadith, what he demands. Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, the person who perfectly maintains ties of kinship is not one who does so because he gets compensated by his relatives. But the one who maintains the bond is the one who persists in doing so, even though the latter has severed ties of kinship. ये नहीं है कि कोई रिश्तेदार हमसे अच्छाई करता है तो हम भी अच्छाई कर लें. What the Prophet expects is कि अगर वो ताल्लुकात तोड़ भी ले, हम फिर भी उससे अच्छाई करें. That is the camp Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the expectation that we have. So my dear brothers and sisters, let us become the nafs-e wahida that is in the message that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's create that muwahhad in marriage that Allah Ta'ala expects from us. Let us make our homes paradise, where the streams of love flow and where there are gardens of happy families. Us Jannat, the Jannat that descended in the homes of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, let's create the same Jannat. हमारे घर रसूल खुदा के घर की तरह क्यों नहीं हो सकते? We have to at least try and make our homes like that. Not only Jannat for us or paradise for us, but paradise for our families. They should be able to see कि ये देखो ये घर है मेरी बेटी का जहाँ पे खुशियाँ हैं. If we follow the conduct of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we will be able to do that. Couple of sentences in Urdu, I must say, कि हम अपने घरों को हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की घरों की तरह बना के इसमें वो जन्नत लेकर आए जो उनके घर में बसती थी. ये वो जन्नत है. एक तो वो जन्नत थी जहाँ से हज़रत आदम को निकाला गया, पर ये वो जन्नत होगी जहाँ से शैतान को हमेशा के लिए निकाल के फेंक दे. एक भी बच्ची ऐसी ना हो जिसकी आंखों में आंसू हों और छुप छुप के रोती हो अपने ससुराल की ज़्यादती से, या एक भी माँ बाप ऐसे ना हो जो रातों की नींद सो ना सकते हो कि कल हमारी लख्त के जिगर का क्या हाल होगा, और एक भी बूढ़ी माँ बेवा ऐसी ना हो जिसको ये सुनना पड़े कि इस घर में या ये रहेगी या मैं रहूँ. That is not what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us. So my dear brothers and sisters, if we want to make a change, it is time to show the world in Tabligh that these are our homes, which are the homes of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he will be proud of us. In the end, I'll read a quote from Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis, ayyadallahu ta'ala anhu, which is heavier and deeper than anything I have said. Hazur says, every Ahmadi who is a real Muslim should always keep in view that marriage is a bond and is something that becomes a religious obligation in a way. Marriage is a bond that becomes a religious obligation in a way, and it is very important to pay the dues of wives and close family ties by both the man and his family and the woman and her family. If the newly wedded couples and both sets of in-laws realize all these matters, family life can be a cradle of love, affection and peace. हजूर फरमाते हैं, हर अहमदी को जो हकीकी मुसलमान है हमेशा सामने रखना चाहिए कि शादी ब्याह एक ऐसा मुआहिदा है, एक ऐसा काम है जो एक लिहाज से दीनी फरीज़ा बन जाता है, और बीवियों और इसके रहमी रिश्तों के हकूक़ अदा करने बहुत ज़रूरी हैं, मर्दों की तरफ से भी और लड़की वालों और लड़की की तरफ से भी. बस अगर ये एहसास शादी करने वाले जोड़ों में पैदा हो जाए और दोनों तरफ के ससुरालियों में भी, तो घरेलू ज़िंदगियाँ मोहब्बत और प्यार और अमन के गहवारे बन जाते हैं. इंशाअल्लाह, may Allah help us do that. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa barik wa sallim innaka Hamidum Majid. Jazakallah.